Very much, Darren. Kia ora koutou. It's my pleasure to chair this keynote session on the final day of the conference. It has indeed been a stimulating and invigorating conference. It's really a pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker this morning, Louise Schaper. Louise is currently a library consultant, and before that she has held various positions managing technology for the University of California in San Diego libraries, and has headed up several departments at the AT&T Bell Laboratories Library Network, where she initiated the world's first experimental broadband-based virtual library. And Louise has served as a visiting instructor on quality management for libraries at the Syracuse University, and in 2003 received the prestigious 21st Century Librarian Award. I first met Louise in August last year when she was director of the Fayetteville Public Library in Arkansas, a position that she has held for 12 years, and she subsequently retired from that position just a couple of months after my visit. Now, the Blair Library in Fayetteville is an absolutely stunning library. Louise has transformed that library service from a small, underperforming rural library to a vital and heavily used community centre, housing an 88,000 square foot US green building, which has been accredited to LEED Silver level. And many may or may not know, but the Blair Library was awarded the 2005 Gale and Library Journal Library of the Year. And that was at a time when there were other quite larger and better funded libraries throughout the US who had been also nominated. Louise is the author of 19 papers, including Let Green Creep, 10 Steps to a Sustainable Library Operations, and she is currently the Library Journal's New Landmark Libraries Project Director to identify the best US libraries completed since 2005. Louise is probably, in my opinion, one of the leading thinkers and speakers on sustainability in libraries, and it's my pleasure to welcome her to the dais this morning. Please join me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. A little bit of housekeeping. I just wanted to say that this is going to be my first presentation with an iPad. So keep your fingers crossed, and we hope that Steve Jobs did his job. But on a more serious note, a grateful note, I wanted to express my thanks to the conference organizers for having me to the beautiful city of Dunedin in New Zealand. This is my first time here. You have an extraordinary country. We have felt like we've been in paradise the last 2 weeks. And you know, the wine, the food, and of course the people and the landscape are just all quite extraordinary. You're very, very fortunate. And the conference is hugely special. It's intimate. It is informative, and you have tremendous food opportunities throughout the conference, and of course that's always a priority for me. The other thing that I wanted to share with you in terms of my perspective being first time at LIANZA conference is yesterday it just hit me straight on how extraordinary it is with the inclusion of the Maori tradition in the conference. I realized after several days that what you have done here is an expression of true sustainability, and it's something from which the entire world is going to learn. It's just earth-shaking and totally an amazing and enlightening experience for me, and just want to thank all of you for having me here, and for me to be able to take part in that experience was amazing. So with that, okay, I want to turn to a little bit of a joke, and I told Darren that I wouldn't make too much fun, but there's been a lot of talk about optimism in this conference, and glass half empty kind of person and a glass half full kind of person, and you know who's being favored here are the glass half full people. So I wanted to take this opportunity at this conference to come out of the closet as a glass half empty person. And I want to advocate for the rights of glass half empty people. So, it's something that certainly doesn't dampen any of my optimism and my hope, because I have been subjected to decades of advertising that and media attention to those who suggest that only a happy face is the right face to have. And so I too have a happy face, and but I also know that having a happy face is a really good thing, because research shows that you will live longer if you're happier, and you have healthier heart and all of that. And but also there's some other research going on now, and there's something called, which is what I think I am, is being a defensive pessimist. Okay, and a defensive pessimist is somebody who, contrary to an optimist, is always looking at the horizon and beyond to try to see what's going to be happening next and be prepared for it. So it turns out the research is indicating that defensive pessimists are actually more prepared and more able to accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish. So how's that, all of you glass half full people? At any rate, there's a big movement in the U.S. to kind of fight back against the happy face and to allow all of us who have sad moments from now and then to actually experience those sad moments. And so I wanted to share that with you in the context of this talk, because I am talking about sustainability and the fact that we are facing huge challenges on the planet today. And so taking the stance of a little bit of the stance of being a defensive pessimist is probably a good thing. At least that's my argument, and for you to all consider. Let's see, where are we? Got to figure out exactly, even though I practice this, how to do this on the iPad, which is a little bit different. So today the topic is working out washing green into your library's mission. And you didn't have an abstract, so I totally changed it on the fly. And we're really going to be talking about New Zealand and the wines and all of that. You have a brand in the world of being a very green nation, and I think that in large part that's correct, but I'm also, lots of people are filling me in on some of the other things that may not be so green, and so I might have a little bit of value today, I'm hoping, because I did say to Bernie, why in the world would you have me to New Zealand when everybody knows New Zealand's one of the greenest countries in the world? So. At any rate, you do have a New Zealand Green Building Council that started a few years ago, and they are certifying buildings green, and here's some of them that have gotten 5- and 6-star ratings. And also, we're just absolutely thrilled that when my husband and I were planning the trip, we were looking for lodging that had eco certifications, or eco, what's the word I want to say, like your Qualmark star rating for lodging, and there's also they do one for green, and so that was exciting. We found this amazing off-grid lodging in Golden Bay, which is the most energy efficient house in New Zealand. It's rented out. It's booked when we were going to be there, so we couldn't stay there, but I wanted to share that with you. Of course, a lot of your wineries are known for going organic. They're going biodynamic, and in this case, there's even a wine that is going to be displaying carbon emissions per glass. It's going to be adapted for every export market. And so my question was, why would, if anyone's concerned about sustainability, why would anyone buy that wine? Because it's going to be going 10 zillion miles away. So at any rate, but no, it was very exciting. We were in Hawke's Bay and Marlborough, and we focused on those very green vineyards, both in terms of their operations as well as the growing of the grapes. And what's going on is really, really heartening to see. I want to encourage all of you to be a green library. There is an author I don't know if you're familiar with. If you don't have this book in your collection, I encourage you to get it. It's called Earth with 2 A's by Bill McKibben. Bill McKibben is a really well-known environmentalist, and is a scholar in residence at Middlebury College in Vermont, and he writes for the National Geographic, the New York Review of Books, and is the author of several well-known environmental books, The End of Nature and Deep Economy, and is the founder of the environmental organization 350.org. And he's saying in his new book, Earth, which I didn't get to finish before I left, but he's saying basically that we are quickly moving from a world where we push nature around to one in which nature is pushing us around, and that we do have to live in this world. We've got to start figuring out how we're going to do that. He's basically saying it's too late. We've already tipped. It's too late. Now let's figure out what we're going to do. So it's even more important that that libraries take a role in being green. And we're going to be talking about 3 problems that we face. We face them as librarians. And the first one is, do that right? Yeah, okay. The first one is global warming. Whether we like it or not, we're facing that. We've got climate change. It's not going to go away. We can't put our head in the sand. And we've got to temper our optimism with some defensive pessimism, and so that we're able to plan and be able to survive in this changing environment. And the second, and I'm sure that's just top on your list when you're operating your libraries every day, but I encourage you to kind of move it up on the list there. Problem number 2 is one in which I think a problem that our missions are directly aimed at, and that is that the human condition is that we are short-sighted just by our own humanness, and we have a tremendous aversion to change. And it's a wonderful quote that Thomas Friedman, who's the author of The World is Flat and Hot, Flat, and Crowded, and he wrote a little op-ed piece in the New York Times recently, and it was in October, and he quoted Lewis Mumford, who's a U.S. historian. He quoted something from Lewis Mumford's History of Rome, and he, in describing the decline of Rome, Mumford said, Everyone was aimed at security. No one accepted responsibility. What was plainly lacking long before the barbarian invasions had done their work, long before economic dislocations became serious, was an inner go. That inner go was lacking. Rome's life was now an imitation of life, a mere holding on. Security was the watchword, as if life knew any other stability than through constant change, or any form of security except through a constant willingness to take risks. And we heard a lot of that throughout the conference, that willingness to take risks, the acceptance of constant change, and not standing still. And we can't stand still in regard to climate change. And so for Thomas Friedman, he said that quote just sent chills down his spine in comparing where we are now with climate change with where the Romans were in terms of the barbarian invasions. More simple terms, I really like the idea of the frog. This is absolutely not true, but everybody uses this metaphor. You put the frog in a pot of cool water and you gently heat it up, and he won't notice that it's getting hot and doesn't jump out and die. Actually, it's not true, I found out, but everybody uses that story. It's a classic management story. And versus putting the frog in hot water, which he immediately jumps out. So, okay. So, what are we all about? We're libraries. We want to enlighten our people. So we really are enlighten them with data, information, knowledge, and we believe that reading, knowledge acquisition, does all those things. And so I think that problem number 2 is the problem that libraries have been dealing with ever since their beginning. But we have another problem. So we've got 2 already, and we have another problem, and that problem is library budgets. How many of you have enough money in your budget? Raise your hand. Nobody. Okay. So, and now, especially with the economy as it is, libraries are no less busy, and staff members are no less productive than they were And so we're facing huge challenges, how we're going to deliver more and more service with the same or less money. Never enough money for staff, for training, for programs, for materials. And so the question is, where are you spending your money? How can you spend your money more wisely? And this may, and so the question is, what percentage of your budget goes to paying your utility bills? And in many cases, it's a lot lower here, I've learned, than it is in the United States, because you may not have air conditioning, you may not have heating. But in the United States, people are spending a lot of money on heating and air conditioning and water, and it's a big chunk of their budgets. And so a considerable amount of our dollars go to keeping the doors open to the building. The heating, the cooling, the lighting, the powering of all your servers, your telephones, computers, as well as the cost of flushing, drinking, cleaning, irrigating. And then you add to that the cost of all the noxious chemicals we use for cleaning, the paper we use in our newsletters, and multiply all of this by the number of buildings in square feet, and you'll get a pretty good picture of how our libraries are major carbon consumers and costing them a lot of money. In the U.S., there are 17,000 public library buildings and 122,000 library entities of all types of libraries. And they are spending, on average, $1.75 per square foot on energy costs per year. I think that's, if you were to compare that in New Zealand, I don't know how many libraries you have, you're spending about double on energy costs in New Zealand as we do in the U.S. This is a beautiful picture, by the way, of a new library in Arizona called the Appaloosa Branch Library, and I think it's going to be, going to be certified LEED Platinum, LEED Gold or Platinum, and we'll talk more about that later. But at any rate, the big picture is that if you look at all the libraries in the U.S., again, I wish I had been able to do this for you, but if you look at all of them, there are 187 million square feet of library space in the U.S. That's 17.4 million square meters. And at $1.75 per square foot of energy cost, they're spending $327 million on energy every year in the U.S. in public libraries. And if all the libraries just reduced their energy by 10%, that would be a $32 million savings in the U.S. alone, much of which could be plowed back into mission-specific activities, programs, collections, more staff, training. So you can see that we can make quite an impact both environmentally as well as in terms of the services that we can provide. The $32 million might not seem like a lot, but we can get in the U.S. 10% very easily. We can get that simply by changing our lighting, and we don't have to do a whole lot more to get that. So I think we could probably get somewhere in the order of probably 30% over the next 10 years, and that would be pretty wonderful to be saving, what is that, like $100 million a year. But in the same time, of course, energy costs are not going to be going down. They're only going to be going up, so that $1.75 is going to continue to go up, and so the amount of money that we would be saving would be going up as well. I wish I could have done that for the New Zealand, but I couldn't find the number of square feet in New Zealand libraries. And again, this is just public libraries. I didn't have that data for academic libraries. I think it's available, I just didn't get it. Two key questions. Do libraries have a role in solving global warming? People ask that all the time. And as I had in the U.S., libraries have public libraries have board of trustees over them, governing them. And a wonderful question from a board of trustee member. One of the trustees said, "Isn't going green mission drift?" So I wanted to address those two questions. I believe that every institution has a responsibility to help solve global warming. There is no country in the world that can even make a significant difference in global warming without all countries working to solve global warming. And countries can't do it without institutions doing it, and they can't do it without individuals doing it. So I think absolutely libraries have a role in solving global warming. Is going green mission drift, or is it mission strengthening? And I believe it's mission strengthening. If you look at corporate branding, everybody is becoming green, and certainly letting you know about their greenness, because it is strengthening their brand. People are expecting that. People want to associate with an organization that's doing good in the world. And I believe that it's going to, by going green, you're going to make your library much stronger, because there's going to be publicity about it. You're going to have an enhanced image in your community, and you'll have more money to spend on mission-specific activities. So I believe that you're totally convinced now. It is time now to go deeply green and educate and reduce the climate impact of your library, educate your community, and save money to spend, so you can spend more on direct service. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody. Every library, some people could save money, and that money would not necessarily go back into their budget. But for a lot of libraries in the U.S., that money would stay in their budget, and they can redeploy that for other purposes. This is a picture of the children's library, part of the children's library at the Fayetteville Public Library, Blair Library, that Bernie was talking about, that I led for 12 years. And the theme of the children's library is Earth, Air, Fire, and Water. And you can see some of the murals. Each mural depicted a different theme, part of the theme. Amory Lovins, he is a founder and head of the Rocky Mountain Institute in Colorado, and it's a think tank, corporate think tank on green issues. And he has been hammering at the issue that green is more than just good. It makes good financial sense. He did that. He was like the first to do that. He's done that for decades. He coined the term natural capitalism, and he basically says that the previous world's view, which I think you and all in New Zealand are probably really familiar with, we sure are in the U.S., is that the Earth's natural resources are plenty. Let's rape them. Okay. And that the new worldview is, which is what Amory's been hammering at. He came to visit us at the Fayetteville Public Library. It was just a packed audience. It was incredible. 10 o'clock in the morning, packed, standing room only. The new world view that he's established is that those who will prosper are those who are seizing the opportunities within the changing patterns of scarcity. So, in other words, you're going to survive if you can figure out how to survive in these changing patterns of scarcity. What does that mean for libraries? It means that libraries are going to will be better able to serve their constituents if they take on a new world view and restructure their priorities in keeping with a changing landscape of decreasing natural resources and increased population, serving more, having less to serve them with. Libraries are going to, as I mentioned before, they're going to spend more and more on energy costs, more and more on dealing with their solid waste, their water use, maintaining their facilities, and their ever-increasing base of customers. But you can stay on mission and even expand your reach by developing strategies to decrease the use of the Earth's resources. So there you have it for Amory. I can't do it anywhere near as good as what he could do. Okay, so the topic today is how to reduce the climate impact of your library in 3 steps. And those 3 steps are people, easy, do it with people, do it with purpose, and do it with process. And again, just want to say there is a little caveat here in that depending on the structure of your entity, how you are structured within your campus or your government or any other entity in which you're a part of, it will depend how much you can be in control of how you do this. I didn't just want to talk about green buildings today. I really wanted to talk about a holistic way of becoming deeply green, because it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen by just by building a green building. Those are all really good things. It doesn't happen just by recycling. You have to look at it in order to become deeply green. We need to take a holistic approach, and that has to do with the daily operations of the library. Okay, cautionary note before we begin. We're going to have a few notes before we begin this, but cautionary note. I'd asked Bernie a few months ago if he knew what the term greenwashing was, and he said he didn't, and so I thought, well, maybe people in New Zealand don't know that, and so I thought I should define that, and that's part of my title, Working Out Washing Green into Your Mission. And I should ask a question. Do you all know what greenwashing, anyone know what greenwashing means? Okay, good. Yeah, okay. So we can skip that now, because a few people do now. But the greenwashing is basically the act of misleading people regarding the environmental practices of a company and organization. They are false claims, they are vague claims, they are misleading claims. My favorite example of this is in Seattle, where farmers markets are pretty wonderful and people shop in them all the time. The supermarkets are now taking their vegetables that have probably been in a truck for weeks and weeks and putting them outside where they can rot in the heat and putting a sign over it and calling them farmers market. That's greenwashing. Another one would be using a term such as, I'll give you this example. Chocolate company in the UK, where they source their cocoa in an ethical manner, but they have another ingredient in their chocolate, palm oil, and that palm oil is unsustainably sourced, leading to a decline in the orangutan population. Okay, so, you know, green isn't just one piece. You've got to look holistic. How does this apply to libraries? Well, you might, and you'll hear from me in how I did this, you might just build a green building and open the doors and then do everything in a non-green way, okay, and call yourself a green library. Can't, that's really greenwashing. And another one might be that you have all kinds of programs about being green, and you invite the public in for these programs, and you're serving food on, you know, on plastic plates or something. The antidote to greenwashing is working green into your library's mission in the 3 steps that I mentioned before, through people, through purpose, and through process. And that ensures that your library will be on the path to sustainability. Because it's not the destination, it's the path. It's the path, and setting up a path that is self-sustaining on its own and keeps going on. Another antidote to greenwashing is when you're, in a very detailed way, is when you're having to buy things, look for products and services that are certified or verified by third parties. Okay, so working green in your mission. You've built your organization's capacity to reduce its carbon footprint and better carry out its core purpose. Great example of greenwashing is a terrible photo, but the I didn't realize that you all, when I chose this, I didn't realize that you all do coal mining as well, and the timeliness of this, so, or unfortunate timing of this. But in the U.S., there's a great big push to, on the part of the coal companies, to reposition coal as a clean energy and calling it clean coal. And there's just no such thing as clean coal. It's greenwashing, it's incredibly deceptive, and it just annoys the heck out of me every time I see the ads for clean coal, with seemingly sincere people sharing that coal is clean. Okay, we've got to have our buildings, we need them, and but they account for a huge percentage of the energy that we use, and there are libraries in various parts of the world that are trying to do something about this. I love the North Adams, Massachusetts. It's the first LEED building in Massachusetts, and 100-year-old building, and they reduced 20% of their energy savings. And I'm not sure what Christchurch is doing with this new branch, but I thought it was stunning, and I had to just put it on this slide. It's just gorgeous. It hasn't been built yet, and I'm looking forward to seeing pictures of it when it's completed. There's solar panels on top of the North Adams Public Library, and they saved 100-year-old building, and they're saving 20% of their energy costs. It's a trend in the U.S. to certify libraries. There are hardly any libraries now being built in the U.S. that are not certified green at one of 4 different levels: basic, silver, gold, or platinum. the many, many advantages to doing that, beyond just lowering your energy costs, but libraries are much healthier and safer places for the occupants, staff, and customers. And around the world, library buildings are getting greener. This is a green roof planted on Cardiff Library in Wales. A great quote by some very forward-thinking architects out of the Netherlands who did the Delft building. In the middle of the USA is a library in Indiana called the Crisney Library. It's in rural Indiana, population 511, and the median family income is $42,000. And I wanted to share a little story with you about what they're doing.
This past August, my husband and I took a road trip and drove from Arkansas to Rhode Island. Along the way, we stopped at several green libraries and facilities. One of my favorite parts of the trip was our stop in the tiny rural town of Crisney, Indiana. It's in this town, population 511, where we saw our first library that had zero energy costs. That's because this library opened in April 2009 with a solar photovoltaic array installed onto the top of a picnic pavilion erected next to the library. The panels are not installed on the roof, they form the roof. Between the solar array and a geothermal heating system, the library has a zero utility bill and in fact creates energy for the local electric company. Now this is farm country in the middle of the USA. It's a small library, just 2,400 square feet or 223 square meters. But here's where something pretty amazing is happening. With a tight budget, community members had the wisdom to invest in technologies that would not just green their building, but would eliminate energy bills and reduce their annual operating costs. And this is what allowed them to have their own library. As architect Bill Brown says, Crisney Library will illustrate a relevant and timely message about how to address climate change, one building at a time. What happened in Crisney can happen anywhere people have a will to save money and be green.
It was just an amazing experience for me to visit this community. I mean, it is a tiny, tiny community, and what they've been able to achieve is simply amazing, and no utility bills. Another library, a big green library, and this one's in California. And I won't go into so much detail, but my old boss, Bruce Miller, is the head of this library, and this is a new campus. The University of California built an entire new campus. It's green from the ground up and from the top down. And the library building was certified LEED Gold back, I think, around 2005, 2006. And show you a few pictures of it. And of course the issues there, this is in northern central California, and the issues there are sun and heat. And you'll see there's a lot of sun mitigation in this building, and a lot of methodologies in place to facilitate the airflow throughout the building. That's a great, great library. Okay, so the three steps that we're going to get to, which are people, purpose, and process, and I don't want you to forget about those, begins with a little bit of a story, and this story takes us from Dunedin all the way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and that's where this is my own personal experience here in planning Fayetteville Public Library's new Blair Library. And we began in 1998, and we had a Republican in as president, George Bush, and who was doing everything that he could to, all right, do that again. Okay. To make, to strip any of the existing laws that were environmental laws, and to strip them and turn things in a very ungreen kind of way. Okay, so we were planning a library. We were having an energy crisis in the U.S., and our citizens were saying, we're really concerned you're going to build this library that's 3 times bigger, and how are you going to pay for the energy costs? We want you to make it green. And it was really the citizens pushing us to make that building greener than we might have done already. And we were going in a green direction, but not as green as we ended up being. LEED, the organization run by the U.S. Green Building Council, or the certification process run by the U.S. Green Building Council, didn't exist until 2000, and we were the first in our state to register, and I think one of the, either the first or second library in the U.S. to register. 4 years later, 5, 6 years later, we opened our building, and we spent the first year commissioning, and what that means is commissioning is an important phase in opening a building because it's fine-tuning all of your building systems so they operate at maximum efficiency. And so we did that, and we became, this is a reading room, and we became LEED Silver certified in 2006. Okay, immediately there was this contradiction that I don't know if anyone else felt, but I just felt hugely conflicted. We had opened this green building, and the first public building in our community to be a LEED building. There was an academic building that was open right before us, but we were the first to register. And we were the biggest and the most public, and there were thousands of people streaming in every day. And we were still giving people plastic bags for their disposable plastic bags to put their books that they just checked out in. And we were still using our cleaners, contract cleaners at night, and the lights were on all night. We were using lots of paper for all these promotional things. We were serving junk food at events. All of the staff, they were driving to lunch even though we were located in the downtown and could easily walk. Our PCs and monitors were left on all night. Our library cards, which we were issuing thousands and thousands and thousands of, when they were thrown away, they would just sit in a landfill forever. They weren't recyclable. They didn't decompose. We had so many more servers so many more computers in our server room than what we had originally planned that we had to add additional air conditioning to that room. And we were using bottled water, plastic cutlery, and dishes at our events. I was mortified. It was just like I woke up one day and went, oh my gosh, okay, I've been so focused on the building, I forgot about the rest of these things. Now, I don't think anybody else noticed. And so I really didn't know what to do about it. And I went through a process, I went through this process of how to align the library's actions with the values inherent in the building. And it was a process. I didn't do it in a way that I would recommend to you to do it, but I learned a lot through that process. We were madly trying to cope with all the things you cope with when you increase the size of your library by 3, and you've got a completely new technology infrastructure, and you're increasing the use of the library by 25%. So it was, and in the early days it was like 100%. It was just thousands and thousands, as you know, when you open a new building. Okay, so I could have, what was coming out, the U.S. Green Building Council was announcing its LEED for existing buildings. That was a way that you can actually certify existing operations to be green. And they have a framework that you can, now I understand, you can grasp easily, even though it takes a lot of work. It's fairly intimidating, but I wasn't really even that much aware that it was even in existence because it was just coming out. And it's a great process. If you want to learn how to green your operations, look up USGBC on the web and look for their LEED requirements. And this is the Clinton Presidential Library, which is 3 hours from us, and they were certified LEED Silver about this, around the same time we were, and then they went on to do LEED Platinum, which our library, my successor, is taking the library to LEED Platinum, and I'm really proud that she's doing that. Okay, that's all glorified hindsight, and as I mentioned, it's just simply not easy being green. And it's, do you have Kermit the Frog here on Sesame Street? Okay, good, okay. And it was just a very conflicted time for me. Okay, so what we did is return to our core values, the things that took our little library that was in really bad shape to being a great library. We returned to those values and made them work for sustainability. It's simple. It's basically maximize efficiencies, be as efficient as you possibly can in everything that you do, whether it's from your building systems to your work processes. Save money, that's our mantra. Save money, save money, save money, and be a leader. And being the leader part was the part that I had to struggle with, and I did struggle with it hugely. I didn't want to shove things down people's throat. We didn't have a lot of time to process this through endless meetings. We were just simply dealing with the crowds coming in the door. So. That was our cistern. We capture rainwater and use it for irrigation. So, all right, we got to go through that again. But here's what we did. Because the building was efficient, because already efficient because it's a green building, we had some savings in our utilities budget. And we started taking the money from those savings and putting them back into greening, further greening the building. And so that was an incentive to conserve, and we, especially for our facilities manager, to conserve money, and that further drove down the energy costs, and then we had more money to plunk into green efforts. And then we were very careful about our purchasing decisions to purchase things that were hopefully more green. And we started doing green demonstrations and tours, a lot of those, lots and lots and lots. And when we had, in the first year or so, we had executives come in from the headquarters of Walmart, which is right up the road, the biggest company, biggest retail store in the world. And they are 30 miles up the road from us. When we knew we had their executives coming in, we knew we were making a difference. The results were, in the first year, we saved about $45,000 off what we would have paid if we had been a regular building. That was pretty significant. That's continuing to drop. And with the advent of installation of some solar panels last year, that's going to further drop. So a green building doesn't stop becoming green. The real benefit, though, personal learning and growth, staff enthusiasm, incredible recognition for the library. We were able to obtain even more grants, and we became really attractive to prospective employees. Not all fabulous IT people or fabulous librarians want to come all the way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the middle of the USA, in what is really a very rural area. And so our goal was to make our library as attractive as possible, and this certainly helped us do that. And of course, we had more savings. And we became far more sustainable as an institution. Again, we became a leader and helped to, in green, and that helped to further kind of strengthen the brand of the library. And here's how you can do it. This is the right way to do it. The first thing is you got to focus on your people. I should start with purpose, but I'll focus on people. And personality matters. You have green champions in your library, people that really care about the environment. Unleash them. Unleash them. This is a picture of some of our staff dressed up for Halloween. The woman in white, who is Princess Leia, is Shauna Thorpe. She's my successor, and she's continuing on the green efforts. And the person in the front, very important person in the front with the Superman, is Sam Palmer, and Sam was the head of facilities. And Sam was a true green champion. We were very fortunate to have our facilities manager to be a green champion. He was just naturally inclined that way and took a leadership role. It's critical that your head administrator and your facilities manager that they are both champions. When you nurture the champions, they're going to start the ball rolling. And in some cases, this is a library in New York State, library system in New York State, a headquarters called the Mid-Hudson Library System. And meet Rebecca. Rebecca is, Aldrich Smith is a MLS librarian, but she is also certified in lead building technologies. And so they have, this library system of many, many urban and rural libraries has someone in their midst who really knows this stuff and can share it. And she trains all over her system and then all over New York State. And then find things that are working, unleash the innovation of your own people, find things that are working beyond libraries. One of the things that we did was when we were looking for a more sustainable library card, we looked at the idea of carbon credits and basically offered a library card. In the U.S., library cards are free, so generally. And we offered a library card that people would pay a few dollars for, or $1, I can't remember what it ended up being, but they actually paid for. And if they bought that library card, that money was guaranteed to go into further greening the library. So it was sort of like a little investment in the library's greening efforts. Educate, be a leader, get your people out who are green champions out speaking in the community, offer green programs. This is Ed Begley Jr., who's a Hollywood actor and green advocate since the 1970s and has a green, How to Live Green show on Planet Planet Green, which I don't know if you have here, but use PR to share your progress. The library is well positioned to influence lots of people. This is a great example of, this isn't a library, this is a mega institute in Rhinebeck, New York, and they're doing a lot of education just inside their building, and I just thought it was a really good example of, and they're really sharing with people in detail what they're doing in terms of the environment. It's there for people to see when they walk in the door. Partner with others and do more. At the Fayetteville Public Library, we had a grant from the International City County Management Association to put in a solar array, and it's called the Solar Testbed Project. It's getting a lot of press. You'll see a lot of information about it. The project involved partnering with local government, and we took it beyond that, and we partnered with local businesses to develop opportunities for those businesses, and through using the library as a test bed for new solar technologies. And that's a picture of the panels being installed at the library last summer. Step 2, purpose. One of the things I did, I think it was after I'd retired from the library, and I was doing a talk for library folks at Library Journal, one of their design institutes, and I went back and said, I was trying to see if we had actually put green in any of our, kind of our mission statement or vision or anything like that. We didn't have green anywhere. We didn't have green in our goals, anywhere in our strategic plan. It was not there. Wrong. You need to embed green into those kinds of documents. And it would have been so much easier for us if we had done that, whether going from policy, strategic plan, goals and objectives, values, and then devising measurement systems so you know where you started and where you're going to. There was a great paper at IFLA. I wasn't there, but I read the paper. Great paper at IFLA this year called Going Green in North American Public Libraries. And the researchers from University of Alberta found that basically there were that most libraries in North America, U.S. and Canada, had not worked green into their mission. And that's actually an effort now that Rebecca Aldrich-Smith and I are working on, and we hope to have something happening in the U.S., and we've approached ALA with that. North American libraries aren't doing it, need to be doing it. Certainly hope you do it here, and you've got a great start that I'll be sharing with you. University of California at Merced has deeply embedded green. They have a 000 commitment, zero net energy, zero landfill waste, zero net carbon emissions. Mega Institute also, another one. And the National Library of New Zealand has a sustainability policy. I was just thrilled to see this. And I like that the fact that Omega and National Library of New Zealand have embedded or have defined sustainability in a very broad term to include people. Also, okay, down to the mundane here. Think about planning green when you're doing your building. Think about really and planning at a deep level. So these are picture on your left would be recycle bins that are done beautifully in beautiful cherry wood. That are built into the Fayetteville Public Library. They're everywhere throughout the library. They're also built in. They're very beautiful in the staff areas. They're beautiful because it's something we don't want to have some dirty old recycle bin. And okay, and so we plan that out everywhere, and it's part of it, and it's very well used. Measure and celebrate. You've got to measure where you're starting from, how much water you're using, how much electricity you're using, and be able to share that with people, and because it will change people's behavior. Just a little movie, which I won't share with you. Actually, I'll share with you for 2 seconds. It only is about 2 seconds.
Car wheels on a gravel road. Car wheels on a
Okay, so you got that, and that is, that was a little picture of the monitor of my Prius, and I couldn't believe it when we got our new car and we had this monitor that told us how much energy we were using, how much gas we were using in every second, and if we were in the eco range or the power range, we were using too much gas. I slowed down. Okay, I became a reformed driver. I slowed down. We are all about saving gas. We want 50 miles to the gallon. I don't know what that equates to here, but and we want the top performance out of our car. So my husband's so happy that I'm now a safe driver. It changes, metering changes behavior, and now libraries are starting to meter, and they're starting to loan out meters to members of the public so people can meter their own appliances in their home. Okay, so the step 3 is process. This is your everyday kind of stuff, and maximum performance is the goal. You want to have all of your systems performing at top speed, top efficiency. Transform cleaning. How many toxic chemicals are you using in your library? I've seen all of this antibacterial stuff all over New Zealand, all over the USA. In the USA, there's something called trichlorosan in that. That is a contaminant. It ends up in our waterways. It's not healthy for us. The EPA in the US still hasn't banned it, but there's a lot of conversation about it. It's been banned in Europe. And not totally banned, but it's been partially banned in Europe. So think about the products that you're using, that you're putting on your skin. Your skin is an absorbent material. You're giving these agents to your customers in the soap. See what you're doing, check out what you're doing, and choose something green. The reason that that cleaning closet is so clean because at the Fayetteville Public Library we only use hydrogen peroxide cleaners. It costs $50 a year. It's a great antiseptic, antibacterial. It's cheap and it's clean. And our cleaning closets are beautiful. So, all right, so microfiber cloths are also a good way to dust. Lighting, huge savings in lighting. LEDs will shave 90% off your energy costs. They'll last for 20 years, hopefully, and they will decrease trash and change how many times you have to change your lights, which you know is a really big pain in the neck. Okay, more pictures of library and LED picture. IT is a heavy energy hog, huge energy hog. Lots of heat. Servers are super hogs, and most libraries are on 24/7. Thin clients are something that we implemented thanks to the brilliance of Lynn Yandel, who is the IT director and a strong green champion. We implemented thin clients for all of our public access computers. I'm sorry, for all of our catalog stations. They're cheaper and they use 1/10 of the energy cost, 25 versus 250 watts. And then PCs, installing software where you can cycle them on and off so they go off automatically when the library closes. And then for your servers, we did a blade server solution, again, shaving a huge amount off the energy use, 188 watts versus up to 1,000 watts for a traditional server, and a lot cheaper to buy and a lot more fault tolerant. And then go beyond all of that. Lighting and your IT, those are big things. You can really bring down your energy costs that way, but if you go beyond, and you can even find some really, really interesting things that libraries are doing. Bike share programs, alternative vehicles, solar-powered, solar-lit, which I think there's some here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm mixing that up. But solar-lit bookmobiles in King County out in Washington State. And then at Darien Public Library in Connecticut, using preferred parking spaces, meaning you can park up close if you've got a hybrid vehicle. There are so many ways to make your library greener. When everybody renovates their library sometime or another, I know probably many of you want to do that tomorrow, but at some point or another you will, and you can renovate and refurnish sustainably with the materials that you choose and the processes you use. You can look for recyclable library cards, they're out there, or go library card less. We went to reusable library bags. People actually bought them. They were not unhappy. We got rid of our plastic bags, and people were buying them in droves. We can reduce printing, reduce packaging, and we introduced remote return so people wouldn't have to drive so far to return their items. We did that in partnership with a bank, so you can get your money out of the drive-up bank window, and you can also return a book. This is the Delft Library. I love this picture, using books for a desk. I don't know if it's circulation or reference desk, but an inquiry desk, sorry. Inquiry. Any rate, I love this, and might be a really cheap way to renovate. Reduce printing. We had a newsletter. We needed it because it attracted donors. In the U.S., at our library at least, we relied in part on private donors. We didn't go 100% digital, but we reduced the monthly newsletter 3 times a year and saved, 10 jillion copies of, I'm exaggerating there, I don't remember the exact number, but, and we used a service called Constant Contact to do that. Okay. This is one that probably some people won't like me saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. I know it didn't make people happy where I worked, and I tried to say it gently, and it mostly fell on deaf ears. But at any rate, food at library events. I just think that, at least in the U.S., libraries are really good at having food at events that attracts people. But I've seen a lot of junk food, and when we're serving food, especially to children or to teens, I don't think we ought to be serving junk food. And in our library, we ended the using bottled water, both for the people coming to visit us as well as in the library, and we installed water filters on all the faucets throughout the library, and we moved towards real dishes and real cups. Yeah. And then another one, if you're buying food, consider supporting your local farmers. It's a sustainable thing to do. Consider having a compost at your library so you can compost all the foods that you are food waste that you are creating at your library, and also consider a community garden on the property of your library. Adopt alternative energy. There are very creative ways to do that. I know there isn't sun everywhere in New Zealand, but I've been here for 2 weeks and it's mostly been sunny and gorgeous. Until yesterday. And there are ways to do that. Doesn't cost you a lot of money. There may be organizations that want to partner with you. BP may be one of them. A subsidiary of BP actually helped us at the Fayetteville Public Library last year. Even in the U.S., there's third-party financing where another organization puts the solar panels on your library. You're basically leasing them and paying that back with some of the power that they're getting. We got to be thinking about plug-ins for electric cars at our libraries. People may want to plug in at your library. And that could be an income stream. Some buildings are developing constructed wetlands to handle their waste. And there are a number of new building projects that are net zero, no energy use. Or creating, like Crisney Library, actually creating energy for the local utility company. And consider your purchasing. Build green into your purchasing process. This goes back to purpose again. If you have purchasing policies, build green into those. Educate your vendors on your successes. Encourage your vendors. Encourage your library automation systems to be greener. I was talking to Gary Kirk out here at TechLogic, who's owned by TLC, and he was telling me about some of their green practices, at which they don't advertise. And I'm like, advertise them, tell people about them. Become greener. You can help libraries become greener. So ask vendors to share their green efforts. This is a picture of some furniture. I actually bought one of these for my shower at home, and I did so because I needed a little bench in my shower. And these are made from plastic milk jugs. And what made them especially wonderful is that they're made in the USA, and there are not too many things made in the USA anymore. And so, and there's always that question of what is greener? And I just want to share this for a minute. Is it greener to buy a stool, let's say, for example, that's made of plastic, okay, but it's made, not recycled plastic, but it's made right in your own hometown? Or is it greener to buy one that's made of plastic of recycled milk jugs that's made in China? And I have these questions every single day in my life. Everything I do, I kind of, I vet those, I vet my actions through this sort of green filter, and I don't have the answers for most of these things, and we're not that far along in sort of the assessment of being able to assess the greenness of all the things that we use and all the things that we do. But we do, what we do know is that if you are asking those questions, you're on the path to being greener. That's what we do know. But I was lucky to find a stool that was both made of recycled milk jugs and made not too far away. In conclusion, your library, all of our libraries, serve as symbols of the attitudes and values of their creators. I love this quote. And your library can serve to extend those values to future generations of occupants and visitors. You are probably the most heavily publicly used, if you're a public library, used building in your community. If you are an academic library, you're probably one of the most heavily used, frequent visited buildings on your campus. You have the power to influence thousands and thousands of people by your actions. And so I invite all of you to become a green library, to adopt green at the very level of purpose and extending out to your people and to all the processes that you do. It takes time. It's one step at a time. But the impact on your library will be at the bottom line. It will be in the knowledge and actions of your employees, and also it will enrich and educate all the people that come and visit and use your library. It will have a very profound impact on the environment, on you, and your customers. And thank you so much for having me here.